Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light, and this is my podcast. And everybody say hello to Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hey Chase, how are you? Oh, that's a stupid
I
question.
am excellent. Couldn't be better.
That's Do you know something? When
Yes,
I listen back to this podcast,
yes.
I always do that stupid laugh. I don't know why. like I'm, it's like it's cool. It's not cool. It sounds like I'm a fucking idiot. But there
It's
you
very,
go.
it's very British. Kind of British piratey. But you
Yeah,
do live by Penzance, so.
yeah.
Okay, today I'm not coming to you as Exit Light. Today I'm coming to you as me, Tracy, a human being. And what Rob and I are going to do is we're going to talk about Mental Health Awareness Month, which started May 1st, goes all through May, obviously, because it's a month. And of course, that is something completely different than what this channel is usually for. So I hope you excuse me for that. But I think it's really important to talk about mental health because the more we talk about mental health, the less stigmatized it can become, and the more people will get help for their mental health, and that is a bonus. If it's with the stigma of being quote unquote mentally ill, um, it people don't want to tell anybody. They don't want to talk about it. If they're depressed, you know, they think, well, I should just pull myself up by my bootstraps. Well, where are my bootstraps? Why can't I just be normal? Um, and suicide is on the rise, up 30%. And it's something we need to talk about. And with the untimely death of Naomi Judd a couple of days ago, I think it's even more important now because suicides begat suicides. And we'll talk about why during this podcast. And Rob and I are going to be very honest with our own. Um, I don't want to say struggles because I don't like that. I don't like the victim mode thing. Uh, but living with mental illness. And for the record, there's no difference between mental illness and heart illness or lung illness or knee illness. It's brain illness, and we need to start calling it that. We need to start calling it brain injury because mental illness sounds like it's made up. It's mentally. I gotta be mentally this and that. It has nothing to do with how you are with that. It has to do with your brain. Scientific facts. It's a brain injury, and we need to start seeing it that way. It's no different than having a heart attack. And what I really thought was impressive when Naomi Judd died was that her daughters released a statement that she died mental from her mental health because of mental health, and that is exactly how we need to see it. Suicide is a mental brain health issue and a societal issue because we turn our backs or we tell people that, oh, you can come to me if you need to, but a lot of times we don't really mean that because it's a burden.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and and you feel like now that's my responsibility. I've had suicides affect my family. Rob has absolutely had suicide affect his family, and we're going to talk about it, right, Rob?
Yeah, yeah. So it was. I looked at I can't say this word. Statistics yesterday just for England, not for the UK. And I was quite surprised actually. Um, Very, very surprised. It's something that, like Tracy has said, we've got to stop treating it like it's this thing that we lock away in the closet and we don't talk about. Especially men. Men have got to wake up.
Yeah, and it's the number one cause of death between men the ages of like 18 and 30.
Well, I was looking yesterday. For these statistics are from 2020.
I think mine are too.
In England in 2020, 4,912 people died from suicide just in that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was under the impression that the age range would be more like around what Tracy said. But the highest rate was males between 45 and 49.
Yeah, and it gets really high too, and people above, I think it was above 64 here.
And I was wondering about that. And I was thinking about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, could it be could it be anything to do with men between 45 and 49 are more likely to have children? Maybe that there were some issues there. I mean, I'm going through issues with my ex-wife now. Well, I'm very, very lucky. And I'm very blessed the fact that I don't have any contact issues at all. I get to see my daughters whenever I need to, but that isn't the case for everybody. And I wondered whether maybe that custody and not being able to see your children at that kind of age, when you've got sort of teenage kids, could be a factor. I don't know. That's just off my own head.
Well, I think lots of things can be a factor, and ironically, the suicide that affected our family was somebody that my daughter was dating. He was 30, and his wife was taking him to court to take away his custody because she was getting remarried, and he didn't have the money for a lawyer. He would often say that he deserved to drown as a death because he was a shitty father if he couldn't afford a lawyer to get his child. I'm not going to go into the method in which he unalived himself, but it was brutal. It was painful. It was traumatic, and even the way that it happened is something that his friends and family have difficulty 5 years later, 4.5 years dealing with because it was so traumatic. And so for his case, it was a custody thing. You know, I think there's lots of reasons. This says many factors can increase the risk for suicide or protect against it. Suicide is connected to other forms of injury and violence. For example, people who have experienced violence, including child abuse, bullying, or sexual violence, have a higher risk of suicide. So he didn't really fall into that category, but most everyone I know that has struggled has fallen into that category, those categories in some way. including myself. And I think that does, well, I think some of those things teach us not to reach out and tell anybody about it. We're taught that we're not important, that our voice doesn't matter, that nobody's going to believe us. People are think we're crazy, and that is, something that you just don't really just shove aside. It's ingrained in you, especially if it starts as a child. A lot of abused women, that is exactly what they're told. Most abused women, I would say, or men too. We just heard that we're hearing right now in the Johnny Depp trial or court case against Amber Heard, that she said to him, well, you go ahead. You say, I, Johnny Depp, a man, am being abused. And we'll see who believes you. We'll see between the jury and the judge who believes you. You're a victim of domestic violence, Johnny. She said that to him. Well,
yeah,
men and women can hear that. And so when you're going through, if you're going through depression caused by that kind of thing, then it's still ingrained in you that you can't really talk about it. I'm going to say right here at the beginning that I have depression, anxiety, and the newest kid on the block, panic attack. Just in the last several months, panic attack has come to move into my house, and he's a really bad roommate. Not enjoying it. Not sure why panic attack moved in. But yay. And I take medications for these things. And
yeah.
I spent a long time. I had been on medication. My depression came full bore when I was about 25, and I got medication then. But then, I just hated the stigma of it. I just hated it because every time you go see a doctor, you're just talking to people. Like every time you go see a doctor, they're like, "What kind of medication do you take?" And you just rattle off these antidepressants, and I'm like, God, it's so embarrassing. I've had an in-home nurse a few years ago ask me some questions about depression, and I answered them honestly, and it went badly. She decided that she had to report what I had said to her about something that happened a couple decades ago. So it enforces that you can't tell people, especially medical people. I promised I would never do that again, which was something I had already known. People feel like I go see my counselor, if I go see my psychiatrist, and I tell them that I'm feeling this way or that way, um, they're required to act on it. So in the back of my head, I always thought the last person you need to tell is the person who's treating you. That's the last person you need to tell.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So we have to be afraid because of that. I get that they don't want to be responsible. Obviously, I get that. But it is ridiculous that we have to be afraid to tell our primary care providers or any healthcare provider, anybody that is mandated to report these things. You feel like you can't do that because you might end up in a hospital against your will. I did not, by the way, but it's scary.
Yeah, I had the conversation, didn't I? I had a telephone. I've had a couple of telephone conversations with. They call them in this country they've got a weird name, like a social. I can't remember exactly, but they basically there to signpost different things in the community to help people who struggle getting out more.
Uh-huh.
And she asked me about my mental health, and I think me and Tracy had a conversation about this afterwards, and I was completely honest, and I think that was one of the first times I've been really, really honest, and I said when I first split up with my wife and I first had to move away from my daughters, luckily it wasn't too far away. I could have quite happily committed suicide. I thought about different ways of doing it, and yeah, it was a difficult time, and Tracy knows this.
That's when I met you.
A lot of the reason why I'm still here is her, and I tell her this all the time. It was a bad time and a low time, and it didn't help because I had mental health issues anyway. But yeah, it creeps in. It's something. It's like a shadow that's always there. And when I was speaking to this lady, I would be quite happy. Excuse me, everybody. I'm so sorry. I would be quite happy to the period of time between us seeing my daughters, which is every 2 weeks. I'd be quite happy to go to sleep and just wake up on the Friday when I pick them up, see them for the weekend, and then the same thing again. But Tracy helps me get through that time now, and I do appreciate that. I do appreciate it. And that is one of the main things. You've got to surround yourself with people that care about you, not people who don't want the best for you.
Be bothered by it.
Yeah, and I know that Tracy wants the best for me, and I do appreciate that, and I tell her all the time.
Well, that's the thing about. I think. Well, first off, we help each other in that way so much. My something happened a couple weeks ago, and my husband said, "You need to call Rob. This is Rob's job." When I joke around that I used to call Rob every day and cry, I wasn't. I was serious. It was a fact that I was going through something, and I would call Rob every day and cry last year. The last 2 years, ever since my father passed away, and then some other stuff was going on. And but the thing is, with finding somebody that you can talk to, is that it helps so much. You know, having somebody. Well, first, I mean, I'm honest with my husband. I can be honest with my husband, and he's great, 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 great about it. But he's also in the forest with me, where Rob can see things from the outside and give different point of view, or maybe even the same point of view, but say it, and then it's like, okay, well, this is not somebody whose job it is to tell me it's going to be all right. You know what I mean? and this is my friend, and we've made promises to be honest about stuff and to be able to speak honestly, and it's so important that it doesn't have to. You don't have to find. I'm not saying don't do therapy. Of course, if you need to do therapy, absolutely do therapy. But in my case, therapy doesn't work for me. It's 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 it just doesn't work for me. But ironically, just having somebody that I can be completely honest with and say, listen, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'll be fine, or I'm having a real shitty day and this is what's going on, and somebody who just listens, doesn't judge, and can tell you, that can help you work through it, can help you work through it. Because just saying, well, tomorrow's another day, sun will come up tomorrow. Um, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Um, you're strong. You'll get through this. Well, that's just shit to say. People who have depression, we need support in a different way. We need to feel like we're understood, that you really will be there if I call you and I'm saying, listen, just having the worst fucking day. I'm just struggling to get through life right now. And we'll talk about it. How are you feeling? What is it that's causing this? You know, what do you think would be, what do you think would be good to do? Or just, hey, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not about. Sometimes it's about just saying nothing.
Yeah, just listening.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. Just saying, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I really am here. I don't have anywhere to go. I'll pick up the phone. And that's really, really, really invaluable. Or like, uh, my husband worked away from home for a long time, so he didn't really appreciate what my anxiety was exactly. And it's only been the last 3 years where he doesn't work away from home anymore, so he gets a better a better understanding of what anxiety means. Like, um, just as an example, well, first off, like I am really bad about being able to use the phone, and which is a very common thing for people with anxiety. We don't enjoy phone calls, although Rob would never tell you that that is me because I talk his ears off. Um, but I it 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 just makes me like, well, have an anxiety attack. And so my husband is really good about like, let me make that phone call for you. Let me make this phone call for you. I'll make that phone call for you. And so he gets to see that kind of thing. Or like, there's a certain place that I don't like to go because of experiences in this. And like, I get sick and throw up before I have to go. And it's someplace I have to go sometimes. And he is seeing like, oh my God, like, this is this is not nervousness. You know, Anxiety, when a lot of people go, "Oh my God, I'm so anxious. Oh my God, I have anxiety," but they mean I'm nervous. It's normal to be nervous. Everybody gets nervous, but anxiety is a monster. It's a whole different beast. Panic attack. I always thought like panic attack and anxiety were like brothers, but they're not even brothers. Uh, it's completely something else, unenjoyable. by the way. But, I've talked to Rob and said, like, I'm getting panic attacks, and this is what it feels like. Or talk to my husband, and um, this is what it feels like. And sometimes you just have to say it in ways that, like, just probably sound like incoherent. It feels fast. It feels dark. It feels like it's bossing me around. It feels like pain. It feels like I need to unzip my skin and I need to run and jump. But if we can normalize it, people do go through this instead of, like, I was physically ill before we made this video today because I just thought, my God, now I'm opening myself up and I could lose a lot of subscribers.
I don't think you will.
Well, if I do, I do. But it made me really nervous because of the stigma behind, having depression or ever feeling like unaliving, or, everybody, and everybody's got anxiety now. Everybody has it. But so it feels like, oh God, you're just trying to be a cool kid. Well, honey, I've had anxiety since way before cool kids did. Way before. When I was in my young teens, I would I played the piano, and I would spend months learning pieces for big recitals, and which of course you have to play, by memory. You can't look at your music. And I would get off the stage and forget it. Never be able to play those songs again, ever. Just completely gone for me. That's not just being nervous. So there is a difference.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make you crazy. I really hate the word crazy. I really hate that so much because it encompasses, like, when you say, oh my God, he was crazy, I'm pretty sure he was whatever, bipolar, schizophrenic, um, uh, psychotic, depressed, whatever. That's not crazy. That science shows us now that there is intermittent depression, which is like, what's the word I'm trying to say? Situational. Rob's wife left him. Um, your spouse dies. Whatever. It's situational, and you can go through a depression period of time. But in general, if you keep going through that, then it lets up. But then there's also depression that happened because our brains make pathways. That's how infants learn to recognize the face of their parents. They learn to recognize what eyes are, what eyebrows do, and you know they learn that they're not attached to their mother. That takes a whole year to make those pathways. If something happens in the formative years of your brain, which is up to 25 years old, and it stops that neuro pathway, it injures your brain. It stops what would have been a normal neuro pathway. But now so let's say you're 11 years old and somebody abuses you, and all the stuff that comes with that is you're 11. Those pathways stop and are injured at 11 years old. When you're 40 years old and somebody reaches out and touches you on your arm or rubs your back or something that reminds you, you're very, very almost guaranteed to react as your 11-year-old self, as an 11-year-old. Cry, curl up, do what an 11-year-old would do, in their behavior. I always say to Rob, this is my 14-year-old self. And, well, that's because that was my 14-year-old self. Right? Don't I?
You do, yeah, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have had the injuries to my pathways leading up to 14, but 14 was a huge marker milestone in my brain development and injuries. So I do react as a 14-year-old self. Sometimes I just lash out, like, just the fuck out, just don't fucking touch me. Just get out of my fucking way. Just as a 14-year-old, the same way I would argue with my parents. And that is not mental illness. That is brain injury. Our brains don't stop developing until they're about 25 years old. That's a lot of time for some shit to go wrong. The thing is that it doesn't affect everybody the same way. Some people might think that they don't have it, that they're not depressed, they don't have anxiety, they don't whatever. Maybe they don't think their brain was injured. But if we look at the way we react to situations, if we look at the way, for instance, if somebody yells at me in an angry manner, that shuts me down. That physically hurts me. It makes me coil up inside like a turtle. And I've always said I am a turtle because I carry my defense mechanism around with me, which is a clam up, close up, shut up. And for years and years and years, I was really good at like locking things, and I tell Rob all the time, I'm going to put that in the box. Something painful doesn't have to be dealt with now. I'm going to put it in the box. Deal with it later. But I was good for years and years and years putting it in a box and not dealing with it, which is what cracked my shell when I was 25 years old. They just couldn't handle any more stuff in the box. And I couldn't keep stuff in the box anymore. It just kept falling out. And that has nothing to do with whether you're happy or sad. It's something you can't help.
Yeah.
It's like a dam cracking. The water comes out and you blame the water. Or you blame it because it's a sunny day. It's not your fault. It's not because you're crazy. And I want to go through some. Rob, do you still have statistics you want to cover?
No, you carry on. I have got some, but carry on.
In 2020, suicide was among the top 9 leading causes of death for people ages 10 to 64. Suicide was the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 14 and 25 to 34. 10 to 14. I heard a story the other day about an 8-year-old who was bullied because of his vaccine status, and he killed himself. It's becoming more prevalent. It has risen 30%. And we still can't talk about it. We still can't talk about it. We're still embarrassed. And the thing is that when people commit suicide, the people around them, and then waves, the people who know those people and the people who know those people, it affects them too, because people who are depressed and have suicidal ideations, when they hear of a successful suicide, they don't feel scared. They feel encouraged because at some level, most people are afraid to commit suicide. We're afraid because it might hurt. We're afraid because we might live through it. We're afraid because of religious beliefs. And so when you hear about someone who's successful, you think, well, if they could do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So you need to watch people that you know, especially like really happy go lucky people who think that act like nothing ever bothers them. You need to talk to people, ask them if they're okay. If somebody brings up to you that, somebody committed suicide, talk to them, ask them if they're okay. Because from the that we know of, 3 more people committed suicide when my daughter's boyfriend committed suicide. 3 more people in their friend group. And then, and then one that was even it was a friend of a friend. And it's because they feel emboldened, less afraid. And then when that switches, that
Yeah.
you can do it. A lot of people don't commit suicide because they're raised that it's a sin. Um, Statistics show that 6 out of 10 suicides are not successful. 6 out of 10 suicides are not successful. And half of those will have lifelong debilitating injuries that they'll have to be treated for forever. And if you think about that statistic, that suicide probably won't be successful. And if it is not, you could be left in a position where you'll never be able to consider it again. Because you could break your neck. You could have brain damage. You could lose your face or parts of your body if your aim is incorrect. You can very likely have the chance of ending up in a situation that when you step back and look at it is so much worse.
Yeah.
Than that moment where you're thinking, I can't take it anymore. We hear about people who commit suicide and they're like, I tried to commit suicide and I lived through it. We hear about those people all the time, and 90% of people who have tried to commit suicide one time don't try and commit it again. Although 10% will um, try to. But if you think about the methods that would be used, I'm not going to get too deep into it because it's just unnecessary. If you think about the methods used, you are putting yourself at risk to be paralyzed from the neck down. Brain dead, brain damaged. You can't feed yourself. You have to have somebody wipe your butt, and you can't do a thing about it. Think about these kinds of consequences. Because I know that a lot of stuff doesn't matter when you're considering it. I know that a lot of stuff doesn't matter. You think people will be happier, my loved ones will be happier, my kids will be happier, my parents will be happier, my friends will be happier because they won't have to deal with me. But think about what you're going to have to deal with if you survive and you have a catastrophic injury that you live through. Think about what you have to deal with then. Those statistics scare the shit out of me. And I'll be honest, completely works. Completely works. Do you know that even if you step in front of a bus or a train You can survive. And think about the catastrophic injuries for those. Think about you having to learn how to walk again, to recognize your family, to say your ABCs.
I
I
mean,
think. Go ahead.
we have taught a lot about this because suicide, mental illness have really been a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
When I lost my sister when she was 15 she took her own life, and my first wife took her own life. Now, when you were talking about religious issues,
Mm-hmm.
people that listen to the channel will know I'm Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously my sister was Catholic. I have struggled for years and years with this you'll go to hell kind of, and this was one of the main things when me and Tracy first met, and we used to talk. We were quite honest early on
Mm-hmm.
in our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and and I've always really struggled about the religious point of view, and like Tracy's already said, mental illness is an illness,
Mm-hmm.
like a brain illness, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to describe it, and yeah, that really helped me because it took a lot of. I was carrying the guilt for my sister. I think
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was carrying it around
Mm-hmm.
nearly all my life up till now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I've just listening to Tracy talk. Then I've just come to a realization. It was very soon after my sister took her own life that my wife did,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe if Annette hadn't done what she'd done, maybe Suzanne wouldn't have done what she did. Because obviously Suzanne knew that
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it felt like, well, like the sense of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and a lot of when famous people do it. We had a footballer called Gary Speed, and if you live in the UK and you follow football, you'll know what I'm talking about. He was successful. He finished playing. I think he was manager of Wales. He was Welsh, and for all intents and purposes, he was happy-go-lucky kind of guy, popular, good-looking, plenty of money, dream job managing his national side, and one day he took his own life, and nobody could believe it. His family couldn't believe it. His daughters couldn't believe it, and I think, like Tracy was saying about the damage that you can do to yourself, and be in a position where you can't try and commit suicide again. Look at what you leave with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, after living through two suicides that were really personal to me. Plus, I've lost a lot of friends to suicide who I was in the army with. who just couldn't cope with living in civilian life. They just couldn't deal with it. And and Tracy knows this. I've been there, and it is so difficult. And you think that it's the only way out, and you think that people will be happier without you here. It is not the way. That is not true. That is absolutely 100% not true.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd have took my own life when I split up with my second wife, that guilt then passes on to my daughters.
Yes.
That guilt doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It goes on to them.
Mm-hmm.
People need. I've got to start talking about this. You've got to start talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're very lucky in the UK because everybody, even Tracy's heard of. I mean, I've sent her enough stuff about Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is the heavyweight champion of the world. He's 6'9", and he's huge. He's like a monster. He has been really vocal about mental health issues and depression, and he wanted to commit suicide. If he can come out and be honest and talk about it, then surely anybody else can.
Yeah, he's not. You look at him, you don't think this man is weak.
Oh no, definitely not.
Yeah. And he's coming out. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who think that that it's the easy way out. They're pussies. Couldn't handle it. I know a lot of people talk like that. There's somebody on Instagram. He does crime scene cleanup, and he takes pictures of all the crime scenes he cleans up, and a lot of them are suicides. And the way he talks about people who commit suicide is disgusting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't go to his site anymore because people say, "Oh my God, does that break your heart?" And he goes, "No, fuck them. Weak. They left behind victims. Fuck them. Their family had to find them, or their family has to deal with this." And I say, "Good. We're better off without you," and this kind of stuff. And I just think, God, that kind of hatred.
Seriously.
Yeah. Read the comments under the ones where he's cleaning up after a suicide. It's disgusting. And then he puts hashtag pray for death. PFD or P4D. Hashtag P4D. Because it makes him money. That way of thinking that they're weak, to be angry about people who have done that, you are so far off base. You're so far off base that I can't even fathom it. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness, people. It's an illness. Nobody trashes the guy who dies from a heart attack. Nobody trashes the guy who dies from lung cancer or breast cancer or a car wreck. Nobody's saying fuck them. Oh, good, better off without him. Nobody does that. This is no different. Like the Judd girl said when talking about Naomi, she died because of her mental health. Yes, that's what it is. And I've noticed a lot more people who talk about it. There was I'm going to talk about her in a second, maybe. There was a, a television personality who just a couple months ago jumped out of a hotel window, and her family said that she died because of mental illness. They didn't say she committed suicide. They said she died because of mental illness. And I just think that's how we get to talk about it. If more people would do that, I can tell from an obituary a mile away when they died by suicide, usually, because they don't talk about the person. They don't mention, oh, she struggled with cancer. There was, like a lot of them will say, she struggled with cancer for 4 years. She was a cancer survivor, until she wasn't. Or he suffered from heart disease. But nobody says they suffered from mental illness until they couldn't anymore. Nobody says that. And we need to define it as that. Or people won't even get help. They won't get help. Now, I told you I don't like the word struggle. Um, I don't like that. I don't. It makes me feel like I'm being beaten, and sometimes I am. Not gonna lie. But I just for myself. But when you're reading about that kind of stuff, um, in February, this top track star, top one of the top universities in the country, um, on a roll, dean's list, all this stuff, summa cum laude, uh, pretty, so pretty. Both her parents are doctors. She committed suicide, and her parents said so. They said she died from mental illness. She was overburdened with having to be a star, you know, track star, and keep her grades up, and be the perfect daughter, and be beautiful, and she couldn't do it anymore. And that's starting to become more common now. I can't stand it when you see obituaries and you know what happened, but they don't. They're just like, we suddenly lost such and such, and it's because it's a shame. It's shameful to families. That's what they feel, and we just gotta just please. If we could all work and talk to somebody, just one person, and tell them, like, it's not shameful to be depressed. It's not shameful to have these feelings. It's a medical issue. You are not ashamed if you have diabetes. You're not ashamed if you have a thyroid disorder, or if you get cancer. You're not shamed. Nobody's not going to put that in your obituary because they're ashamed. Let's stop covering this in shame. And the thing is that suicide covers all races, mostly white people though, and all economic status. And we see famous people and we think, if Naomi Judd commits suicide at 76 years old, by the way, well, what the hell is there for me? She had more money than God. She had the adoration of the whole world. Um, two beautiful daughters, a happy marriage. What the hell? What what is there for me? And I'm going to read some famous people that committed suicide. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the first one happens to be a British actress. Her name is Maya Alicia Naylor. She was on the TV show Millie in Between and Almost Never. In 2019, she committed suicide at 16 years old. Anthony Bourdain, super famous celebrity chef, had the world at his fingertips, talked about the fact that he had mental illness, was open about it. He also had in his past a drug addiction, but he was so open with his struggles for depression. And he died in 2018 at 61 years old. Let's see. Stephanie Adams, Playboy Playmate. She died at 47 years old. She jumped from a 25-story hotel building. She was in an ongoing custody battle, Rob, which they think affected her decision, and she also took her son with her. Let's see. I want to. So many WWE wrestlers do commit suicide. It's this is Mike Alfonso. He was known as Mike Awesome and the Gladiator. It said that he was distraught because his wife said she wanted a divorce. Let's see. Avicii died April 20th, 2018 at the age of 28. This shocked me so bad because I love his music. He's a Swedish DJ, remixer, electronic musician. He toured extensively for years while battling health problems, including acute pancreatitis, chronic pain, gallbladder, ruptured appendix. He was traveling with help me, Rob, the redheaded British guy, or is he Irish? You know.
He's a United fan.
Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran.
Oh, Ed Sheeran. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he had just been touring with Ed Sheeran. And he couldn't take it anymore.
Chronic pain, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Let's see. Hold on. There's a whole bunch of Chester Bennington. He was the lead singer of Linkin Park. He was very honest that he had depression.
You like Linkin Park?
I do. He was also the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots. He wrote a song, and before I started this, I asked my daughter what the name of it was. Something about lights. Something about lights, and it's about the people who are left over after suicide, about there being an empty spot at the dinner table, and they feel angry, and they should feel angry, and they feel lost, and they should feel lost. It says, who's going to notice in a sky of 1,000,000 stars if one goes out? Well, I will. I do. And then he committed suicide. Chris Benoit, super famous wrestler, died at the age of 40. Also took with him his wife and children.
I remember that.
Mary Kay Bergman, she was the female voice of all the characters on South Park. She died at 38 years old. Let's see. Stephen Bing. He was the partner to Elizabeth Hurley, famous model, dated the British actor Hugh Grant. They had a child together. He had a $600 million estate. I'm sorry. He jumped from the balcony of his 27th floor apartment. All the money in the world. Money. What they say, it's so cliche. Money doesn't buy happiness. It doesn't buy you mental health. Um, you don't know this because you've never seen this movie, but everybody else listening will know this. At the age of 85, Clara Blandick, who was Auntie M in The Wizard of Oz, killed herself.
How old was she?
85.
That's just crazy.
Kelly Catlin died March 7th, 2019 at the age of 23. She had attempted suicide 2 months earlier by the same method. I'm not going to say the method she used, but she lived and she had health problems. She was an Olympic silver medalist in cycling. She had a genius IQ. She was a triplet. Her father is a doctor and a pathologist, and he wrote that he believes that her death was caused by depression from a concussion from a recent biking accident and brain damage from her first suicide attempt. Um, let's see, Kurt Cobain, questionable,
Yeah.
but said to have died by by suicide. Daisy
Is that the
Coleman,
guy from? Is that the guy
uh,
from Nirvana?
yeah, Nirvana, yeah,
Nirvana. Yeah.
married to Courtney Love at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's that was actually shocking. Daisy Coleman, which you guys might not know, but she was in a documentary that you can watch on Netflix. She the documentary is called Audrey and Daisy, by the way. These two girls accused a high school classmate of sexually assaulting her. It was on videotape. The video had been passed around to all the high school kids. Um, they they terrorized her afterwards. They didn't treat her like a victim. They treated her like she was a slut because she got drunk, passed out, got raped. She became a really strong anti-suicide activist. She committed suicide in 2020 at the age of 23. Um, um, Chris Cornell, the lead singer for Soundgarden, he was one of the very first pioneers of grunge. Um, died in 2017 at the age of 52. Kate Spade, super famous clothing bag designer. Very famous. All the money in the world. Everybody loved her. Um, shocking. Uh, There's some people that I just, when it, like Robin Williams. Robin Williams committed suicide. When you hear that somebody like Robin Williams committed suicide, and you're like, it's so shocking. You just think, my God, he had everything. He was so funny. He was, you know, you just wouldn't have thought that in a million years. Of course, we all know that the clowns are the sad ones, right? Well, for me, Kate Spade was a shocking one, and the way she did it was horrific. Um, let's see. I think there was one more that I want to talk about.
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger did not. He overdosed. As I said, it was accident. Okay, I can't find it. Oh, you guys might recognize this guy. His name is Rick Genest. He had his face tattooed. He was famous for his face being tattooed. He had his eyes were all black on the outside. His nose was black, so he kind of looked like a skull. Um, down his neck was like his spinal cord tattooed. He became so famous that ended up being a fashion model for Terry Mugler, GQ, Vogue, L'Oreal, many, many others. He was in Lady Gaga's Born This Way video. Um, he died in August of 2018 at the age of 32. Um, anyway, there's so many that it's, oh, the original Superman um died by suicide. And not only did the original Superman die by suicide, but in the Superman TV show, the original Lois Lane died by suicide. Ernest Hemingway died by suicide, and so did his granddaughter, Margot Hemingway. Um, Supermans have had a lot of stuff connected to them that
Yeah.
we should actually talk about sometime. The founder and the vocalist for INXS, the rock band INXS, Michael
Michael
Hutchins.
Hutchins.
Yep, died at age 37. There's just so many, and I just want to tell you that because um, it doesn't matter if you're rich and popular. The somebody that this is so strange because he affects my life to this day. His name is Brian Keith. He was the father in the original Parent Trap, and he starred as Uncle Bill in this TV show called Family Affair. And when I was little, the local TV station in the summer, instead of running repeats, they would do reruns of old original TV shows, black and white TV shows, the original like um, Father Knows Best, Pippi Longstocking, Leave It to Beaver, and this show, A Family Affair, and he was an uncle to three kids. The oldest kid who played his niece, she committed suicide. His daughter committed suicide 2 months before he committed suicide, and then he committed suicide. But they lived in a Rob, you're gonna get this now. They lived in a high-rise apartment, and my whole life after I saw this, the guy who cleaned their windows, the family's windows on this high-rise apartment, was the voice of Winnie the Pooh, which I recognized because I love Winnie the Pooh and was like, oh my God, that's Winnie the Pooh. Um, my whole life I wanted to live in a high rise. When I moved 3 years ago, I made sure that I did that. Um, so it's strange because that guy, you know, who was uh, dead by the time I was not very old, I'm assuming, uh, it still had an effect on me 3 years ago when I was like, this is where I want to live. Um, Elvis Presley's grandson committed suicide. His name is Benjamin Keough at the age of 27 in 2020. Like I said, Margot Kidder, who was the original Lois Lane. I'm sorry, she was in the movie Superman. So that was the remake, obviously, not the original Superman. She committed suicide. Um,
Oh,
it's
Margaret
just,
Kennedy.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. The son of the man who played Chekhov in the original Star Trek, he committed suicide at the age of 41 in 2010. It's just so Brian Lawler, who is the son of Jerry Lawler, who was the voice of the WWE, um, he committed suicide. Um, anyway, I'm gonna close out here because we wanted to wrap it up. So many WWF. Sorry, I changed it from WWE, right?
Can I just
I'm s-
can
yeah,
I just one more thing
yeah.
before we go? I just want a quick 5-minute story. I had a friend when I was a kid. He was my best friend, and I I love this guy. We were inseparable. And I lost touch with him when I went in the army. And he was a good-looking lad, really dormant, really strong. Anyway, I lost touch with him, and I got hold of another friend that lived near him, and I said, he was called Darren Rothwell. And I said, can you do me a favour? Get hold of Darren and tell him, this was on Facebook, let's tell him to give me a ring and give him my number. And he didn't get back to me for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he rang me and he said, have you not heard? And I went, not heard what? He said he killed himself. I went, no, don't be daft. And he said, yeah, he killed himself. And I went, well, it was so unbelievable, so unlike this person. I know you was just talking about Robin Williams, and he was like the funny guy, and you don't think he would have mental illness. Well, Darren was the same. He, and that I put up there with my family, my sister and my wife and Darren.
Mm-hmm.
It shocked me to the core.
Mm.
And I just wanted to mention it. I just wanted to mention it.
Thank you. I'll never forget the sound of my daughter's voice when she called me to tell me that the guy she'd been dating. I'll never forget the sound of her voice. I knew immediately.
Oh,
I didn't know who, how, or like who or how. I didn't know, but I knew immediately what was coming next because her voice sounded like an animal, a wounded animal. And all I kept saying to her was, "Who is it? Who is it?" And she just kept saying, "Mom," and this voice I'll never forget. Nobody wants to hear that. Anyway, I hope that this podcast has maybe helped some people. Maybe you guys hearing about me and Rob and things that we've gone through and talking about it openly will help you guys to be able to talk about it to somebody openly. That's why I wanted to do this. We wanted to, because it's Suicide Awareness Month, and we wanted to, or it's Mental Health Awareness Month. We wanted to. It was really it's really weird because I was I always think about what we're gonna do the podcast about, and I thought we should do something on mental health because we do so many stories about serial killers and unidentified victims and just so much death that a lot of it is tied to mental health.
Yeah.
And I thought, we should, do something about that. And I thought, well, I wonder when Mental Health Awareness Month is. I looked it up. That was on April 28th or something, and it started on May 1st. And I called Rob and I said, this is like a sign.
Yeah.
That I just happened to look it up now. I just happened to get the feeling that we should do something, and I want to do it. Do you want to do it? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So this isn't going to be. I'm not going to do this for the rest of the month. I just want to bring awareness to what this month is and open a conversation. And if you guys want to leave comments below, that would be so great. If we can get conversations going, that'd be lovely. And
please be respectful with your comments.
Oh, Yeah, definitely. And I don't have any doubts that this community will do that. Because we, you guys are always so great. So thank you for coming. Please give this video a thumbs up. It I'm sure it won't be monetized. But the more thumbs up, the more it gets recommended to people so that they can see it. Please share this with people. Really, if all the videos we ask you to share with people, and those are usually for like a you know and I hate to say it like this, but an entertainment or something kind of a niche, an interest that people have, value. This is a real health issue that needs to be shared and talked about. So if you guys would do that, and if you do that, let me know in the comments below. I'll give you a shout out. And thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
And I gotta get back into my computer so I can stop this video. Good night, you guys.
Good night.